So this
Okay.
is this going to be the first test between business and unions and all the different groups that Prime Minister hopes will come together when it comes to the construction sector and saving it?
Well, this is in terms of the penalty rates. Well, look, certainly, I think the reform of the industrial system needs to go a lot broader than just one particular award. But look, it's a proposal that's been around for some time. I thought it was a little bit odd that it's being flown so early in this process of the 5 working groups. I thought that there'd be a period now of without specific proposals until September when we do get specific proposals. But look, I understand that certain groups want to put things on the table now.
Well, Denita Wawn was on the show a short time ago. She's the chief of the Masterbuilders Association. She's predicting post-September that there will be, up to 450,000 job losses in the sector, which would equal collapse. I mean, is it that bad?
Well, look, it probably is. I mean, the reality is the construction sector is going to have to shrink. I mean, population growth has just gone off a cliff, and it's likely to stay much, much lower for a very long time. So quite simply, the idea of stimulating new construction doesn't seem to make much sense because we just don't. We're not going to have as many people. So I've actually been very disappointed with all this so-called housing stimulus, which is, semi-announced. I mean, billions of dollars just being thrown at one particular industry when, lots of other industries are suffering too, and they're not getting special handouts. I mean, all these cash grants are going to do is just bring forward purchases that would have happened in the future. They'll push up prices, and they're also massively unfair. I mean, why should middle-class people be getting 40 grand to renovate their home? It's just bonkers.
Yeah, well, Labor makes the point, and it's a hard one to go past, that what's to stop renovators from rorting the system? If someone gets 20 grand or 30 grand, what's to stop the renovator from, jacking up the price by that much?
Oh, of course. That's exactly what's going to happen. It's a completely crazy proposal. I just hope that if it does happen, it's for a very limited period of time. But of course, people are going to change their income to get this money. I mean, it's quite a large sum of money to be given by the government. So people will, of course, rort it to get it. And like I say, population growth's fallen. The construction sector is going to have to shrink. There's no alternative. You can throw as much money at it as you want, but it's eventually going to happen.
Just onto the RBA today, will rates be cut?
No, look, I don't think they will be cut. The RBA said a number of times now it's going to keep the cash rate at 0.25, of course, historic low. There's some chatter about negative rates. The governor has said that he's not going to go down that path. Now, look, he has ruled things out before, such as quantitative easing, and of course they have done that. So I'd put some small probability on it, but certainly not today. It'll be later this year or next year.
Adam, what would that mean? Well, if you go negative, what does that mean for the ordinary folk at home?
Well, look, there's a slim possibility that if you had a home loan, for instance, then it might shrink over time rather than increase. Now, there are some countries in Europe where that is the case. Very unusual. Likewise, with your deposits in a bank, it might actually shrink very slightly. Of course, it wouldn't shrink too much because people always have the option of taking it out and keeping it in cash, which, of course, is not going to shrink. So there are limits to negative interest rates, intrinsically.
Would it hurt the banks even more?
Well, look, I don't know. Banks tend to be okay regardless of the situation at the moment. I mean, they're still profitable overseas. I think the conventional wisdom is the banks don't like these negative rates because it's compressing their margins, and there is some evidence for that. But certainly, we're well away from that yet.
Yeah, but they did. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but they didn't pass the last cut on, did they?
No, they didn't actually.
Yeah,
that's right.
So why would they do that again if it dropped again?
Well, look, they probably wouldn't, in my view, because of this interest margin kind of factor. They're trying to preserve the average between their lending rate and their borrowing rate. So I think the RBA knows that further changes on that front are not going to have much effect on bank rates.
Hey, just a sidebar. I just want to get your thoughts on Queensland tourism. There's an interesting report in the Courier Mail on the front page today that says the Queensland economy stands to benefit $1 billion by allowing intrastate travel. Does that surprise you?
No, look, I mean, it certainly does.
That's what happens.
I just hope it's further evidence that they should open the borders. I mean, it's and from what I hear this week, they're kind of inching towards that far sooner than they originally thought.
You'd have to think that they're going to do that, right?
Of course, it makes a lot of sense. So fingers crossed for Queensland tourist operators in particular.